good morning, good afternoon, and good night, since we come to you on, I think, all three of those time zones within any given day on the Community Education Channel. Welcome to Talking Point Live. My name is Eric Young.
I'm Jennifer Kohler.
And we're glad to be with you once again. Thanks for tuning in once again, either through the Community Education Channel or through our Facebook page, facebook.com/talkingpointlive. If I can get you to take that so you can see what it looks like, that's us there. And you can find our programming here archived. And then additional articles and things that we put up that we're talking about as well will all appear on this page. And we hope that you decide to join us on that page. If you have something to say, you want to contribute to the conversation that we've been having, please feel free to do so. And I'll let you do the disclaimer.
Oh, right. The opinions expressed on the show by Eric and myself are entirely our own opinions, and they don't reflect in any way the opinions of the university or our CEC friends or our families, our
spouses, our children,
your dogs, in your case.
And that's why I think I need to be more dog-like.
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
Well, they don't care,
chill.
Right?
They're more chill.
It doesn't matter what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Except
so long,
they do care about you and Mindy.
They do.
They care about their families a lot.
Don Miguel Ruiz, in his book, The Mastery of Love, says, the perfect relationship is one that you can imagine that you have with your dog, but only one half of that relationship is perfect, and it's the dog's half. Because a dog doesn't have any expectations of you. He or she just loves you no matter what it is that
Are you saying he doesn't expect you to take him out for a walk on a pretty regular basis?
Well, both my girls do, yeah.
Yes. But they love you no matter what.
When I don't, and that happens often as well, they're still like, okay, well, we'll still take you as our Lord and Master.
We still love you.
Yeah, no, they're great dogs. So, and so we left you last time on this whole concept of love. And for this, well, before I even get into that, I need to go, so this is our finale show for this season here, before we go into break for the Christmas break and then come back for spring semester of 2019.
I know. How about that? 2019.
So I just want to go through and say thanks to the crew here, to Lauren Cummings, who has been directing the show now for 3 years, I think, to Marcus Farnsworth, who's been our producer, and to James Farnsworth, who has manned, I think, every camera, and both the Farnsworth brothers have engineered things in order for us to go through and show us what to do.
I think they're related to the TV guy.
Which
invented
TV guy?
television.
Oh, to Philo T. Farnsworth? Are you guys related to Philo T. Farnsworth? They are. James is nodding his head.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Amazing. Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
That was just a wild, I must have been inspired.
Also, I was thinking that was spelled with a PHAR in Farnsworth, but
Philo is.
Because Philo is. That's just the way the old noodle works. So
sorry, I
my
threw that
great
in there.
Thanks to you. I love you all, and I appreciate your support of this show. You certainly didn't have to do this. This really is just by our own inclination to come in here and sit down and talk, and hopefully maybe raise the bar a little bit on how we go through and think.
We really want our community to have a sense of what happens in the classrooms here at school, what the values of critical thinking are, and we do love our students, and we do want that connection between the campus and the community. I mean, it's really what drives this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us here as well. So I'll start, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was in, when I'm down here, I populate Starbucks from time to time, basically every Wednesday morning after I leave where I happen to be staying that night. And I have, they got good coffee there, and I'll have something to eat. And for the last 3 or 4 weeks while I was there are these three ecclesiastical types, these three ministers who come in and they sit at the same table, and just their laughing alone is enough to get every ear in the Starbucks place to listen in, because the laughter is free and easy. They are clearly close friends in what it is that they're doing. So the last time I was there, I thought I would introduce myself and sit in on their conversation, which was fascinating. And I posed a question to them. This there were 3 different congregations, and not LDS congregations. So it's a different type of a context for them to be here in what might be considered to be a monotheistic culture there. But their congregations are also made up of, as you can imagine, of pretty stout conservatives, sprinkled in with a few liberal ideas, liberal embracing individuals in there. And so I asked them a question. And I asked this question to my students in my critical thinking class as well. And that is, given this idea of a divine intervention, that there's something supplemental to those who are faithful, to those who take on a name and decide to act in that name. That that goes along with that a Holy Ghost or a divine intervention, something supplemental to them. That becomes somewhat of a compass or a way or a guide, or however you can go through and couch those terms there. And that being the case, as we embrace or support the current leadership that's going on, would there not be some dissonance with that voice? Would there not be something that says, I am a person of character, of high moral value, somebody who is inspired perhaps by some heavenly intervention, and yet I fully support somebody who's not, or has no evidence of being?
So I think fully support deserves a little bit of elaboration.
Well, a vote, I think, is a pretty fully supporting idea.
So I would beg to differ.
Okay.
That
Please
a
tell me,
vote
what do you mean by that?
Is equal to fully support. Well, first of all, I think Utah's an interesting example, because there were certain states that had a third-party candidate
Right.
in the national
Yeah,
general
Utah
election.
was one of those. With,
And
you
it was, and with some guy,
Evan McMullen.
I can barely remember his name because he popped up on the radar like 20 seconds before I got to vote.
Right.
And I voted for him, actually.
Was it Evan McMullen?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I think, 20% of the
Yeah,
voting in our state for some guy who nobody'd heard of?
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you that a lot of people in this state were unhappy with the other choices?
Granted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that idea of
Yeah.
voting for the least objectionable alternative,
Yes.
which maybe many felt that Trump was.
Yeah.
Many felt that, there was Bernie Sanders as well.
Yeah,
In that, but
he
not,
wasn't on the ballot,
not in
though.
Utah.
At least not on he was on the primary
He was
ballot.
on the primary ballot, but not, you're
Right, and so fully support in the vote thing. So then there was a certain percentage of the population that did vote for Hillary Clinton, and a certain percentage of Utah that voted for Donald Trump.
Right, and
Yes.
and it'd be safe to say, to support where you're coming from, that both of those were the least objectionable alternatives for those individuals who thought. But still, okay, so I asked one student in particular, and I'll get back to the response of the 3
Okay.
ministers here in just a minute, so bear with me. But I asked one student, and his response back to me, I posed a question to him: how can you reconcile this incredible dissonance between the character and the shenanigans enacted, the lies, everything by President Trump, with your supporting of him? And he is not one of those least objectionable alternatives. He feels that he is the savior of the United States of America, and is the one who's going to go through and make everything right, because how much he hated Obama before. And his response to me was, it's my duty to support whomever is in office as the President of the United States, regardless of the actions that are going on, which I think can also be turned on its ear, because I have my doubts that level of duty was had that stewardship of the previous administration. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yes. Well,
So now we're all
yeah.
duty bound to go through
Yeah.
and support. So again, it comes back to this: how do you reconcile that difference? Because to me, that's been the main cognitive dissonance with Trump. It's not the fact that he ascribes himself as a member of the Republican Party, and to my great Republican friends, I I think that's in a way disrespectful. He's not a Republican. He's not a Democrat by any stretch. He who knows?
He's a Trumpian.
He's a Trumpian. That's what he's That's what he's dedicated to. So I pose the same question to these three ministers. How do you reconcile that with your congregation?
Or how do they reconcile it with themselves?
How do they reconcile it with themselves? How do you counsel, if there is any, along that line? And the first response is, well, we really don't get into politics, and that's great, okay? And maybe there's no room for that. However, when certain moral infractions have to resonate with where we are spiritually, if not religiously, those two worlds collide in ways that maybe we weren't ever even anticipating. So the answer that I got back from was interesting, because there were two of these guys that were there as we got into that conversation, and then later we were joined by a third individual who came in a little late. Well, the first answer I got was because we as human beings have the ability to go through and completely compartmentalize things. So we have our education box over here, and we have our family box over here, and we have our religion box over here, and we have our politics box, and so on.
And our work box.
And our work box. We have boxes for everything, right? There's a great YouTube video out that extols these ideas as well. What's interesting about that is it's us, men, who have most of those boxes. Women think a little bit differently.
Yeah, I would say actually, if you take that box idea, to me that is like a schizophrenic, non-integrated human being that can separate and compartmentalize.
Are you calling us all schizophrenic, non-integrated human beings?
I'm saying that if it's
the
taken,
male race?
if it's taken,
because it's pretty accurate, actually.
Okay,
think about it.
I'm just saying that I think that's not the ideal way to live one's life, in this disintegrated, non-integrated manner. I think.
Well, we go to great pains to make sure that those boxes don't even touch each other.
When you say we.
Men.
Okay.
The box holders.
Okay.
The compartmentalizers for the most part.
Okay.
And that's not to say that women don't compartmentalize.
Right.
There, but I think they are. Well, the research shows, Dr. Helen Fisher is an anthropologist who's studied how we fall in love and what love does in relationships. She speaks to this whole box idea, to this whole concept of compartmentalization, and that men do it much more than women. Women are more global thinking. You're more detail oriented within that. You can zoom in and zoom out and understand everything is related there, right? Everything has a relationship. So what happens with the car is going to happen with visiting grandma on Thanksgiving. It's going to happen with what's going to enter into her will when she dies, and everything is connected there. Men don't make those connections necessarily.
That's very interesting. I think it would be a hard way to live life, because in fact everything is connected.
Well, men have that one box, the nothing box, that keeps us very happy. We go to the nothing box.
I don't even know about this box.
Oh, yes, you do. You live with somebody who has a nothing box.
Yeah, but I never had one. I don't know what.
You don't ever go to his nothing box because you're a smart woman.
Well, describe
right?
it.
Have you ever asked him, hey, what are you doing? And he goes, nothing. Have you ever had that conversation?
Actually, he doesn't ever say that.
Okay.
He pretty much is doing something.
He's always busy doing something.
He's always looking at something or thinking about something.
Right. Well,
or falling asleep.
While he's watching a basketball game or something.
He's pretty much trying to fall asleep.
Is that the nothing box? I think that's the nothing box.
Okay,
that's the nothing box for me, right?
Okay.
There are times when my spouse might ask me the same. I don't say nothing anymore. But it's well, how can you not be thinking? How can you go to your nothing box? And after a while we could get kind of tired just doing everything in the political box, or everything in the religion box.
Well,
or
is that
everything
like
in
meditating? Is that a form of like meditation, where you're supposed to go into this space
See, there
of
you
nothing?
go, making relationships, taking it up to the next level. In defense of men, yes, that's meditating. But it's kind of a default box that we have.
Is it just like a timeout?
To go to? It's fishing is the nothing box.
Okay, and for women it might be crafting or fishing.
That could be
I don't know too many women that fish, but I know a lot of women who like to do
way.
creative things with their hands.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a timeout space for
There's
people.
recent research, though, that shows that when we kind of default to that nothing box, when we're just doing the dishes or we're not really engaged, that the brain actually lights up in areas and gets into more cognitive and critical processing.
I totally believe that.
Than it does when we are engaged, like in
Yeah.
a conversation like what we're doing right now.
Well, all you have to do to prove that is if you're tackling a problem and you're kind of stuck or you've been at it and you get up and walk away and you go do something else, you will often see your answer that you couldn't see when you were
Yeah.
like hard at it
Yeah.
with your nose pressed
Yeah.
to the glass,
It's
right?
incubated long enough for it to maybe rise to the surface and give you something else.
Yeah.
I listen to music or obviously a lot of NPR when I am working on the car or I'm doing yard work or whatever, and I can hear the story rebroadcast and know exactly what I was doing at the time when I first heard it.
Oh, that's
You know,
interesting.
there's that relationship that happens to me that lights up, that gets me out of those boxes and maybe starts analyzing everything that's going on around me. But there are times when I just like to go to the nothing box.
So back to the ministers and the
Right,
Starbucks.
right. So here's what they got into.
Okay.
Was that basically it's our ability to go through and compartmentalize things and not have our religion bump up against our politics and not have the values clash within that. Men are more
I
prone
totally
to that.
reject that line of thinking.
Well, because you're a woman. And not to be sexist in that respect, actually it's a compliment to you
Right.
because you do make relationships that happen. Or am I putting words in your mouth? You reject
No.
it on what basis?
Well, I just think if you believe in the virtue of, say, fidelity in marriage in your religion and in your own life, you don't say that it doesn't matter in your leader as a character quality.
Okay, so the compartmentalized response to that is, yeah, I value fidelity in marriage. He obviously is
Does
not the
not.
poster child for that.
Does not.
But look what he's doing with the economy.
Yes, so I wouldn't say that is justification. So to me, that's not compartmentalizing so much as justification.
Well, there's a justification
or,
box.
or some people would say strategizing.
Yeah,
Like my mom, well, I shouldn't say my mom. I'll say a close family member. Just the other
too
day,
late.
yeah. Just the other day, too bad it's live TV, confessed to voting for Donald Trump because of the Supreme Court nomination vacancies that were anticipated.
Okay.
So I think, getting back to how Utah voted and why people, you say voted meaning fully support. I don't think a vote for somebody means fully support.
Yeah, but see, there's still, at the very least, there's a value attached to that.
Yeah.
Because your mom's value, whatever that might be,
No,
it might
my
be
close
Roe v.
family
Wade, or
member.
your close family member's value, is still tied to a decision that could be made by a Republican in office, and that's why she decided to cast that vote.
She did.
So to me, that's the boxes rubbing up against each other. There's not a differentiation between what drives us in terms of values. And for a lot of people, those values are embedded in their religious upbringing or in some sense of their own spirituality. I don't think we can argue against that.
Mm-hmm.
And as we take those, we take those suitcases to the polls or to the ballot, we're going to go through and check what resonates with us. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? What these guys are saying, the ministers, and what I'm agreeing with is, when we don't have, so that's a projected value as far as the Supreme Court nominee. That was back when Kavanaugh was a twinkle in Trump's eye, right? We had no idea where that was going to. Well, we had a pretty good idea where that was going to go, but we just didn't know who that was going to go to. That value is still projected, onto Trump. It's still projected out there on some level that he at least has a wherewithal to select somebody who could fulfill what we expect from that value.
Because he was the head of the Republican Party. He was their representative in the election, their nominee. So he's the
president
would
of the
fall
United
that
States.
he would then appoint a justice that would be a conservative justice. And
Right.
I think he used that on the campaign trail
Yes,
to good
he did.
effect.
Yeah.
So when you say a vote means fully support, well, I think that vote means I support a presidential candidate who will nominate a conservative justice.
Right. I think we're kind of arguing the same side of the coin
Okay.
here as that goes. So her boxes, she doesn't have any boxes. It all relates there. What I'm hearing from these guys, when I'm seeing, especially with students, and most of them are male students, is, well, yeah, I think he's kind of a schmuck. I don't agree with his morals or standards, but I am in a better economic place, which
You know,
that's debatable now.
I wish
as
I was
well.
an economist, and I wish I had the data, but I don't think you turn the steamship around
I don't-
of the United
I-
States
I
economy
fully agree with you.
in a matter of a few short months.
But that's what we're hearing.
I resent
In fact,
that
what we're hearing
oversimplification so
from
much.
right-wing economists is it doesn't matter that the deficit is tanking even more than it ever has been at this point.
Right.
What matters is that more people are employed, more people of color are employed. This is the argument that I'm hearing. This is what I heard just the other day. So what would you rather have? Less people employed and less debt, or more people employed and more debt?
How about more people employed and less debt?
Well, it's a false dichotomy, obviously,
right.
that he's putting out there, and yet that's the myth that keeps being bought, that keeps being
because
believed
they're
in.
oversimplifying a very, very, very complex system.
At the risk of offending my audience, they're depending on a very simplified audience.
You mean the American voter?
Right, yeah.
Or the average human? See, okay,
Or the average
okay,
Trump supporter.
let's just talk about simplification and its uses and its values. And I'm going to say simplification is equal to stereotypes. Because
Right.
stereotypes are a form of simplification.
Agreed.
And as humans, if you go back to my big mantra that life is dangerous and that all of us humans are just trying not to get run over by the bus or
right.
eaten by the tiger,
Right.
we have to have stereotypes or simplifications in our life in order to make snap
We
decisions.
have to think quickly in order
We
to
do.
survive.
We do. So we like those. We like stereotypes
But
and
the political
simplifications.
process, it does not depend on quick
Yeah,
thinking.
but we're humans and we're in a big hurry. We have a lot to manage in our lives. We have work, we have family, we have obligations. We do not have time to critically think about every single decision that we make.
I agree.
And so the people that are running for office and the people that are selling us products, they know this. And they say, we're going to serve up a stereotype. We know how attractive it is and how useful it is, and people are going to bite it. And so we
Not just bite it, they're going to glom on
and
like
swallow
a
the whole
pit
thing.
bull and not,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Sorry, that was probably
Yeah.
not a good, nice reference to pit bulls. I didn't mean it that way.
not very politically
Lauren.
correct when it comes to pit bulls.
It wasn't.
Yeah. But so, okay, so they are preying upon our humanity and our humanness. And so all we have to fight back with is we just have to recognize it when we're getting served a stereotype, when we're getting served a simplification, and we have to say, time out, this is voting, this is a big deal here. Or this is picking my mate, or this is picking my, whatever, my job. We have to say,
Or this contradicts my values and standards.
right.
But that's not happening. We're like,
Well, it might-
that's just locker room talk. I'm okay. Well, when Kavanaugh was being vetted, one of the main arguments that I heard was, who didn't screw up in high school? Well, I didn't screw up in high school.
Well, to me,
It's that
it's
stereotype.
more like,
It's that simplistic thinking that we all did.
yeah.
And you know what? I went to high school with some great individuals.
So you're saying you wouldn't have to lie or obfuscate if you were being researched for a high-profile position. You wouldn't have to manage the way you answered the questions or kind of
If you didn't have
dodge
anything to
a
hide.
few, yeah.
Well, now we're going down a different pathway
Right.
here as far as that goes. I'm just saying, and what these ministers I think are alluding to, and there's no right or wrong answer to this, or no, we're just postulating here, is that we do, and you use the word, we do very well at justifying. We find a lot of satisfaction in being able to go through and say, well, the reason why is because of I have a better economic outlook than I ever had before. And that's good enough for me.
That's so short-sighted.
I agree.
That's not what American patriots die for.
I agree.
That's not why people go into the military to defend our country, is a better paycheck.
Absolutely.
That's not the whole sum total of what being a patriot and a sacrifice is about. It's about ethical standards. It's about morals and ideals. That's what's worth fighting and dying for.
Well, we
not
used to stand for that. that used to be in the rhetoric of the
anybody
American
who tells you
dialogue.
that their paycheck is the sum total deserves a scolding.
Wow, I
Yeah.
agree. I guess that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, including ourselves.
Right. Well, we're in education, so
Try to educate
it
ourselves.
kind of negates the whole paycheck thing.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So where do you want to go to from here?
Well, let's make a pitch to our Facebook, to our community, to make some suggestions on our Facebook page.
How do you get out into your community?
Be compassionate, be kind, and be specific.
Don't take the social media route and lambast us for what we've been saying here, especially my pit bull comment. I know I'm going to get it on that one.
Okay.
I can hear Lard in the background there somewhere. But so what you're saying is get onto our Facebook, facebook.com/talkingpointlive, and maybe chime in as to, not maybe on what to say, but what have you done? What did you do to get out into your neighborhood and to talk to somebody? And those kind of anecdotes, I think, are more valuable than us sitting here saying, oh, you need to get out.
And what did somebody do for you?
Yeah,
right?
Even better.
What
was
landed for you as...
What opened you up? Because we need to start talking to each other.
Oh, and how do you navigate in your life these huge differences of opinions? One of my students was saying that he got into this biggest shouting match with some family members over NPR, and they were just saying how biased NPR is, and he said to them, do you even listen to it? Well, no, we don't listen to it. Well then, so how do you navigate? Because I'll bet you there's hardly anybody in our county, in our local audience, who doesn't have family members or close friends, probably mostly family members, because we can be selective about our friends, right?
Yes, we can.
We pick our friends based on their values and ideas that we have in common, typically. But family members, I bet there's hardly anybody who doesn't have family members who have maybe even a passionate difference of opinion or belief regarding important issues.
But I don't think you're going to get them to listen to NPR.
No, I'm not just saying, how do you navigate it in your life?
I think what we're trying to allude
Thanksgiving's coming right up.
Is we drop the conversation.
Well, in my family, I have a sibling who says we're not going to talk about politics here. We don't want to talk about anything that might lead to any kind of contention.
So what did those conversations
So we
end up
play a
being?
lot of games.
Pumpkin
and
pie recipes.
we talk about a cruise to plan together as a family, and
Okay.
recipes and
Thank goodness there's the NFL.
well, for me, there's not even the NFL.
Right. No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't buy into that either necessarily.
Right. So
I just know in my family, that's where the conversation goes.
and so maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. For me, it's a little unsatisfying because I value my siblings' opinions. I think they're smart and well educated, and I value kind of the dialogue, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's a way of solving a puzzle or pulling a problem apart. But for some people, it's just a source of divisiveness.
Well, it sounds like your siblings have the ability to maybe check the emotions at the door and just get into maybe descriptive language and talking about the problems.
Or they don't, so then we can't have the conversations.
So, okay, all right. The NFL probably wasn't the greatest thing to bring up because inevitably somebody's going to take a knee during the national anthem, and then.
Can I go on record as an American saying I will support their right to do that at any point in time?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Me too.
respect the causes that they're espousing
First
in the
Amendment right.
name of honoring the flag of the United States of America.
As a father of a soldier, I definitely feel the same way.
Okay, we agree on that.
We do. Well, we've stalled right down to the last 52 seconds here in the show.
Consider it stalling, just because we're not racing to the last 30 seconds with last-minute bombs.
Any last words? Thoughts?
Thanks for the semester.
Thank you for the semester. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think we've gone to deeper levels than we have in the past with the show. If you think so too,
I did get some feedback
page?
Somebody said they really liked that Skype we did with Taylor.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we ought to, if people have suggestions of people
we need
could
to
try
pull
to
in
Skype
many more
with,
guests.
we could do that again because I really enjoyed it too. Yeah.
You've been watching Talking Point Live. Thank you for joining us. Go on Facebook and watch the rest of the shows if you get a chance to. I'm Eric Young.
And Jennifer Kohler.
We'll see you next semester.